Now let's get you an expert's take as well, as I am now joined by Dr. Yadvindradev Vikram Singh Jhala, who's the senior scientist at Indian National Science Academy, National Center for Biological Sciences. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you so much for joining us at this broadcast this afternoon. Now, when we talk about it, from International Big Cat Alliance to Project Cheetah and the completion of 50 years of Project Tiger as well, how do you see India's wildlife conservation efforts that has already gone global with International Big Cat Alliance?
India is one of the only countries where the government funding is almost exclusively done for conservation. Other countries rely on a lot of NGO funding and international support. So today we can boast of having 75% of the world's tigers, about only population of Asiatic lions in the world, lots of elephants, snow leopards, as well as cheetahs and leopards as well. So this is all done with government funding. India has committed about 88,000 crores in the next 5 years to spend for conservation in our country in the meetings that it has had with COP and so on and so forth. Today's day, which is the Wildlife Day, International Wildlife Day, commemorating the formation of CITES, which was the international body for controlling trade in endangered wildlife species, which was in 1973, and the United States General Body the United Nations General Body in 2013 adopted today as the International Wildlife Day to commemorate CITES. Now, the law, the Wildlife Protection Act of India, has been made in consonance so as to have a single law for CITES as well as the Indian wildlife protection. Now, this was done in 2022. This is a big leap to meet international standards. And all this bodes well for biodiversity conservation, because if we don't have biodiversity, we don't have ecosystem services, and the future generations of humans, especially Indians, would suffer a lot without this big national heritage that we need to conserve.
Also, when we talk about it, Dr. Jhala, and considering the changing climatic conditions all across the globe, how important it becomes to preserve wildlife, also considering India's COP commitments as well?
So we have a large population of people which is still growing. We're the largest country which is highly populated. We have some poverty in our country as well, which is still to be addressed. Despite these odds, India still boasts of having a dynamic and diverse biodiversity. And this is because of our unique geographical position, where we lie at the confluence of the Ethiopian realm for animals coming in from Africa, the Indo-Malayan realm coming in from Southeast Asia, the Palearctic realm coming in from Asia and Eurasia, and India's own endemic species like the blackbuck, the nilgai, the Indian wolf, and so on. So we are at this confluence of biodiversity. Yet, it's the attitude of Indians, the religious and cultural attitudes of our people, which are full of tolerance. Our religions preach sort of benevolence towards nature and custodianship of nature, while the Western religions talk about dominion of nature. This drastic difference between our cultures has allowed biodiversity to thrive in our country despite all odds of poverty and population. So I think that's a big achievement for Indians, and we need to look upon this and take it forward as we are doing today. Also, biodiversity thrives only when there is prosperity, and India's road towards prosperity is an important leap towards conserving its biodiversity. If you have poor people, then they'll depend on natural resources, exploitative uses of forest resources, bushmeat consumption, and that does not bode well for conservation of nature. But when you have prosperity and rural lifestyles, as we talk about Panchayati Raj, I think that's where we are headed, to conserve nature, to conserve biodiversity and ecosystem services for future generations of Indians.
Indeed. Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has always, focused on people's participation, or as he calls it, Jan Bhagidari. When we talk about preserving the incredible biodiversity specifically, how can common people become a part of it?
Common people are a part of it because, it's just the common people which are responsible for their tolerance towards having large carnivores living within them. If it was not for the common people, we would have lost our biodiversity long back. So it's Indians who are to be praised today on this platform of having a biodiverse nation of ours. And I think you can contribute even more if we were to link biodiversity with economic prosperity. We have to make local people who bear the brunt of conservation, benefit from having diverse wildlife species in their midst, because, see, for example, the cheetah, which has been brought into India, the local communities need to benefit from them through ecotourism. The land prices in and around have plummeted, they've gone up
All right.
This needs to be promoted so that the limelight is not hogged by multinationals or by rich people, but the resources which are generated from them, the great receipts which are brought from national parks and tiger reserves, are shared with the local people, as is being done in Madhya Pradesh very efficiently. The tiger reserves, whatever money they make, it's 30% of it goes back to the local community. This is the way to win over local communities who actually bear the brunt of conservation.
A very quick last question. It is about the National Board for Wildlife. Now it has 47 members, including the Chief of Army Staff as well, along with the NGOs, which again ensures a 360-degree involvement and approach of all important stakeholders. How can this further advance the dream of having a very rich biodiversity of India? Dr. Jhala.
Most of our, the Forest Department, of course, is the primary body which takes care of managing and looking after and conserving biodiversity. But many of the other agencies, like the Army, the BSF, are in control of a lot of land in our country. And these areas which are under their control are biodiverse, because the borderlands where there is very little human impacts thrive with biodiversity. And sensitizing them, bringing them on board and making them stakeholders in actually managing and conserving this biodiversity becomes a very, very important part. The NGOs play a cementing role. The government funding has its own restrictions. There are certain places where governments can't reach out because of certain norms and policies that one needs to follow. And in these, the NGOs can come in with their small amount of funding and act as a cement between the cracks to make sure that you have an entire whole of biodiversity conservation. This year, the United Nations has dedicated to funding biodiversity conservation, funding people who live along with biodiversity. And India has pledged several alliances like the Big Cat Alliance. Now, it all depends on how we fund the Big Cat Alliance in conserving species within India as well as outside. And I think our Prime Minister must have made a lot of commitments today in the meeting, and we look forward to having these commitments fulfilled in the years to come, where international, not only the national biodiversity benefits from India's prosperity.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Y.V. Jhala, the senior scientist, for joining us and bringing us a rounded perspective on this important day. Thank you.
Thank you so much.